Hey Hebrew fans, this is Todd. So today I'm going to talk about Trapjaw, and we're going to see what exactly some cool things are about it. Let me change this light so it's not shining right directly on the TV. And hold on a quick sec. There we go. That's a little better. So anyway, so let's go ahead and get started with the original Trapjaw from the 80s. So here's the Trapjaw. This is actually the commemorative one. And the commemorative one, which is made after the 80s one, did not come with a hook. So I had to actually go on eBay and buy just a separate hook. Now, what's cool about Trapjaw, as you guys probably know, is his mouth opens and closes, and he has changeable weapons. Now, as a kid, having these three weapons were just not enough for me, so I had to add my own weapons. So let's go ahead and do a rundown of some of my cool customs. The first thing I discovered was you could put micronaut arms in here. So I took this from a Micronaut that used to be kind of orangish in color, and a friend of mine cast it in black, and then I could put a cool saber saw onto Trapjaw. Bzzz, and that was kind of a fun, cool thing. Now, one weapon he did have in the cartoon was kind of this bolo laser, and so I made this right here. And I made it out of some grapes that my wife had on this little cool stand, and then I used some O-rings, and then I had some parts from oh, I forget the name of that toy line. They were basically some kind of building toy line. And then this little piece right here was from Snake Mountain, one of the extra chunks that I had. And then painted it all black. And then I had that cool laser that you saw in the cartoon all the time. Another thing he had was like a mechanical arm. So I took these parts from Spider-Man and made this cool mechanical arm looking thing. And I also decided to make a bigger one so I could hold on to better stuff. Same exact design, but I just took and added some plastic pieces on there, so now he could grab bigger things than just regular. And then, of course, I would just find odds and ends that I could put on there, like this cool gun piece that, gives him something cooler to use. And then the cool thing was this right here, the dropper. And this was my first made dropper that I made. And basically, I got a cool little crank here. It would crank the the cord up, and then it has this hook that actually came from GI Joe, and so then he can plug this in. Well, it's wrapping around his leg, and then he can lower it down, and then he'd have his own dropper that you could wind back up and pick up whatever. So that was the ones that I made for the 80s style figure. And I also remade a hook. I made this one out of hardened metal so that he could then go down on a string and it would not cause it to bend, because the other hook had a lot of flexibility in it and it really couldn't hold his weight very well. And it's a good chance the rope or string might have cut through it. So that's why I made my own metal hook. You have to stuff it in there kind of hard though so it wouldn't fall off. And then he could then go down the string and not worry about ruining that rubber. All right, so that was the one from the 80s. So next, we had the 2000X. The 2000X was pretty cool. I really love the design of it. So let's take a look at this one. Put him in the back. Here's the 2000X one, and again, he has the movable jaw. And then he comes with extra weapons. Now, the detailing on these were really cool. I mean, look at that gun and the arm. I mean, that is such a cool job the Four Horsemen did. And he came also with his standard 3 arm things. He has his claw, and then he has his hook, which is quite the mammoth hook. And then, of course, you just pop and play these in and out. There we go. And you could stick in his different weapons. There we go. Now, in the cartoon, they didn't show a whole lot of extra ones like we saw in Filmation. He pretty much had these 3 most of the time. And in the cartoon, they would shoot in and out of his arm and come back out. So he wouldn't actually change them out. They would actually go into his arm and then out would pop his next weapon and continue on. So it was kind of interesting the way they did that design instead of him replacing them back and forth. It was just the idea that it would suck in and a new one would pop out. All right, so there's 2000X. Now we got the classics. Now the classics, as you guys know, is my favorite of all the figures. Of course, I'm looking to see what happened to the origin. So here's the classics. This is not the head he came with originally. His head he came with originally was this one right here. And when I first saw it online, the first thing I didn't like was the shiny guts that were ripped off from his head, left over from the. If you guys saw the comic, how he was made by Skeletor busting his jaw off by punching him, then you know that's kind of the idea. So when I first got this figure, the first thing I did to make it like the old one is I sanded off those guts and painted it black. One of my original customs from a long time ago, and that was the head that I used. It just looked more aesthetically pleasing to me. But I know some people like the extra gore and guts. I am not a huge fan of that. So he has a different head he's sporting now, and I'll talk about that head in a moment. But first of all, let's talk about his other head he came with. He came with a Kronos head. So who is Kronos, you may be asking? So let's go ahead and watch this video clip that I prepared ahead of time to kind of talk about Kronos a little bit. So Kronos is actually it's actually him before he became Trapjaw. And there's Kronos right there, and you can see it. And notice the cool weapon he has in his hand too. And then also notice on his back, his clothing actually closes all the way. And it's kind of interesting. He's already wearing that black side on his right side that he, has. It's kind of cybernetic looking. So you can kind of see how, this figure's kind of made. And there's this cool weapon. All right, let's go ahead and set this back up and keep talking about it. So I decided it'd be cool to actually make that weapon. So I actually made one on Shapeways. And I made it in such a way that this handle is small at the bottom and large at the top, so it could go in his open hand. So he can hold it a little higher like it shows in the cartoon where he's holding it higher. Or it could go in his hand that's not as open by grabbing onto the bottom half of it. And that way then he could hold it in either hand depending if he wanted to do the regular hand or the open hand. So that's kind of the concept when I designed this. So there was these guys named Spy Monkey, and they made some really cool pieces you could get to swap out with your guy. They made this just like I made it when I was a kid, right? And they made a cool blade. And what else did they make? I don't remember the third thing they made, but they also made these extra little handles. They made a handle like this and a handle like this. So what I like to do is put these two together, kind of like the Glycos type stuff, and then he can have his cool pirate sword looking thing. And then I use this one on here, which is actually reminds me of the weapon that Chewbacca had. I mean, that's very Chewbacca looking. Now I know in the cartoon it's supposed to go whoop that way, but I thought that was kind of cool how it looks like Chewbacca's weapon. And so that's what I usually give him, is the gun version of that. And then I usually give him this weapon right there that I made on Shapeways, which you can order on my Shapeways. I know, it's a plug, right? And so there you go. There is this cool guy. Now I did make it so you could put a heat shrink tube on it, so after you paint it, it won't get ruined. So it is a little small in the hand when you first get it. It's made for a heat shrink tube to go on there to protect it. All right, so let's talk more about this guy's weapons. So I went kind of crazy on his weapons. First, he comes with the ones that we know, the three: the gun, the hook, and the regular claw. But then we got a weapons pack that came with other black weapons, which is kind of cool. So we got these that were actually Roboto's weapons originally, and they put some blue highlights on them to kind of give us other options to use for him. So that's cool. Now we got 6 weapons. That was pretty cool to have those extra 6 weapons. Then we had Hurricane Hordak, and in his extra weapon pack, we got some extra weapons that fit Hurricane Hordak, has the same plug in the back. So of course I had to add those in as optional choices as well. Where is the fan blade? It's somewhere in this mess here. There it is. And the fan blades. You can stick it in until like he flies or whatever. So then I went ahead and started making my own on Shapeways. And so one that I made first off the bat, you guys have probably already guessed, is I had to make this after my original design. And this was probably, I thought was so cool. You can see it's looks like the one I made for the 1 years ago, but it's actually been on Shapeways. And I couldn't find blue paint that matched. My daughter-in-law went to cosmetology school, and she said, "Hey, I know fingernail polish that's that color." And so that's actually blue fingernail polish. If you go to our website, he-bro.com, you can go to the custom section and find out the exact color type that is that matches. It's kind of funny that she happened to find that for me. And then I remade my dropper. And the dropper is kind of cool in that it's when you get it on Shapeways, it's already connected, so you can't actually make it unless you get it 3D printed. And it has the handle so you can roll it up, and then you add your own hook. And this hook right here, I happen to get from Webster. So there you go. So that is my new dropper. And again, I just used that same first sprayed it in black, then afterwards just used that fingernail polish. And then I also remade the sword. And then I made a fly swatter. Whoop, because in the cartoon it's a fly swatter. I made a jet engine. Ugh. You can see it's got the two cool fans in the front. I painted it more of a flat black so he could fly with this thing. He shows in the cartoon. Also in the cartoon, he has one that looks just like it, but it's actually a fire extinguisher. So you can use it for both. Just don't show the fan blade. Go this way, fire extinguisher. This way, rocket. Anyway, so then, oh, I made a new claw for him. There we go. Ta-da. This claw is not bendable, but it's still really cool. I made two versions of it. I made one where it had one claw on the bottom like a hand, and I made one where all four are evenly spaced. So you can get either one of those again. They're on my Shapeways. Go to he-bro.com to find it. And I think that's all I made. So then we got, I'm not sure which came first, but I'll talk about the Filmation one first. Then we got this Filmation trap jaw. And you can see his trap jaw is kind of cool. And he came with 3 weapons as well. And he came with, finally, dun da da da, the weapon I've been waiting for, and a giant fly swatter, and the gun that we already know. So I decided, you know what? Since we got an official one of these, I went and bought an extra trap jaw just so I could paint it black. Hey, Matt, thanks for joining us. So this is that weapon painted black so it could fit into his hand. So now I got lots of versions of this thing, but this is the official Mattel release version. So that's kind of cool. I went ahead also and painted the fly swatter too, so I have the official Mattel release fly swatter painted black. I left this part unpainted so it would not get stuck in there from the paint being pulled out and in and out of the socket. So there you go. So my trap jaw has tons and tons of arsenal now from all the different, yeah, look at this pile. Big old mess of parts everywhere from all the different weapons packs and figures and everything else. So the head. So as you know, I told you earlier he came with a head like this, right? Well, I like the Filmation head a lot. I think that is a really cool head. And so I decided to paint one to match. So you can see the paint job. Hey, Adam. So I just basically painted this to match better aesthetically with the Classics one. So you can see it's similar but yet different. And so that is my new classic head that I use. So there we go. That is my trap jaw. All right, we got one trap jaw left to talk about, and that is the one that came in the PowerCon 3-pack. Now this right here is based on the comic that came in the mini comic, and I'm always afraid to move this guy's arm up. It just feels like it's going to snap off. But anyway, he also came with the standard 3 weapons, the gun, the hook, and the claw. Now what's different is the plugins are different. These plugins are like dowels, where the other plugins have this kind of snapping feature. So you can kind of see the difference. So these ones, the good news about it is when when you pull them off and on, it doesn't make that clicking so much, and you don't have to worry about it breaking as easy. Where I'm always afraid at the other one, it's going to end up ruining it. These ones slide in and out really easy. The bad news is because it's a different plug, you can't use the old ones in there. They're too big to fit. So he's kind of limited unless he has to go back and remake them all for his size. So anyway, I just leave the gun in there and call it good. Ugh. There we go. All right. One thing I forgot to mention is the belt. And I'll go back really quick. From the very first inception of Trapjaw, his belt has always had little spots to store his weapons. So that's really cool. And then we saw also with the 2000X, his belt had little spots to store the weapons. And then we saw with the Classics, his belt had little spots to hold the weapons. And then the Filmation does not, and the 3-pack does not. But I thought for Kronos should not have the spots for his weapons because he doesn't have the removable arm or the removable spots on his arm. So I carefully cut those off and just slapped some green paint on there a long time ago. So there we go. And for those that just joined, I'm going to go ahead and play this Kronos video again in the background so you can see he does have the green belt, but does not have the sides on it. All right. So I believe that's all I have about Trapjaw. So leave your comments below and like, share, tell your friends. And if you're a Trapjaw fan, let me know. I think he's one of my top 3 bad guys that I like. All right, you guys. I'll talk to you later. See you next episode. And remember, show yous around. I'm trying to get my hit counts up before my stop motion. Oh, and if you saw the space launch, oh, that was so cool today. Put a thumbs up in the bottom and say, yes, SpaceX go. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye now.